tossers have thrown it out the door with their behaviour this week. They should be ashamed of themselves. They should absolutely look at themselves in the mirror and wonder what the have they been doing. They're hissing at us and calling us cheats in the Lord's long room, and they have the gall to talk to us about the spirit of cricket. Absolute bullshit.
There's a big appeal, it's hit him on the pad, he's out! Lions gone, New South Wales are 9 down! Onto Sydney Road, and it's hit a car! Oh, I think it's hit a car! What a way to bring up your 50!
All you want is to leave it all behind. Now there is a simple remedy to stay fit for all eternity.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. I am Manners, and we are here to wrap up day 3 from Gaul. Joining me from Melbourne, just near the MCG, is Damien Watson. Damien, how are you?
Yeah, I'm good. The weather's actually been pretty sound of late in Melbourne, unlike in Gaul at the moment. So, yeah, it's a bit of a shame we didn't get much cricket today in Gaul, Manners. So, I've been watching more of the women's stuff at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Me too. So in this wrap, we're going to talk a bit about the action in Gaul. We'll also talk a bit about the Women's Ashes Test. Didn't really get a chance to go into that yesterday. And so good opportunity now. And then a bit of news around the Australian Champions Trophy squad that broke today. But over in Gaul, Sri Lanka started the day at 3 for 44, 610 runs behind Australia. And they finished the day when they called stumps very early, and they were 5 for 136. So they lost 2 for 92 in today's play, and they still trail Australia by 518 runs. Basically, they played up until about 10, 15 minutes before lunch. Then the rain came in, and they never got out there again. They threatened to get out at one stage. They took all the covers off, and then the rain came back. So I guess the two bits of action, Kamindu Mendes was out, caught down the leg side off Mitchell Starc for 15. That made the score 4 for 67. And Damien, a lot's been said about Mendes. He's averaging 75 in Test cricket, and that's an unlucky way to get out, just flicking it one down the leg side. So a good wicket for the Aussies and a good early wicket today.
Yeah, exactly. And Mitch Starc bowling very well as well on a wicket where, and conditions in general may not be conducive to his style of bowling. So he's been very sound. And Matt Kuderman as well, getting on the wicket-taking list. He's taken 2 this innings already. So good to see him making a contribution as well. But impressed with Mitch Starc's bowling. He's applied the pressure for a large portion. He's been very economical, impressively as well. 2 for 13, his figures off 8 overs. So he just keeps on keeping on, as they say, Menners. And, yeah, it was interesting watching the potential for the rain delay to come to an end. And it's funny, you could see the clear skies for a moment. You're thinking, great, they're going to come back on. And then probably about 5 minutes after that, it became gloomy again. You're thinking, gee, it's going to start pouring again. And it did. So, just unfortunate.
Yeah, I can't point the fingers too much being from Sydney. The other wicket to fall was Dhananjay De Silva, the Sri Lankan captain. He was out stumped for 22, as Damien was saying, off the bowling of Matt Kuderman. And that was a very disappointing dismissal. Used his feet, had a bit of a slog at one, missed it, and a good smart stumping off Carey. But, that seemed an irresponsible shot. There didn't seem to be a lot of thought into it. I'm all for aggression and being positive, but he just seemed to blindly run at Kuderman there, was nowhere near the pitch of the ball, got nowhere near the ball at all, and was stumped. And, bad shot from him. But I also think Kuderman's been very impressive in this innings.
Yeah, absolutely. Showed his wares, as we know, a couple of years ago in the Sheffield Shield, and he's usually pretty consistent. I've got to say, it was a very poor shot in the sense that the partnership was going reasonably smoothly, wasn't it? They're not looking absolutely convincing at the moment at the crease, but I think the partnership had reached 40 runs by that point, Menners. So to play an undisciplined shot like that, indiscriminate shot as well, you just thought, gee, to give your wicket away cheaply, it was like trying to rebuild the momentum again, and that's what they've been doing. And this is the problem. They look like they're getting out of trouble, and then all of a sudden a lapse in concentration, and then they're staying and playing catch-up again.
And yeah, and the big difference between Sri Lanka and Australia is Australia have taken every chance they've been given. They've been fantastic in the field. Carey's been very tidy behind the stumps. Couple of dismissals today for Carey to catch and the stumping. So Australia taking every opportunity. I guess the one shining light in this innings for Sri Lanka has been Dinesh Chandimal. He's he brought up his 31st Test half century, his second against Australia. In his last innings against Australia, he made 206 in a victory in Galle. So he's done well against Australia in the last couple of innings. And yeah, he's probably the only one that can maybe put up a fight here in this innings. But I guess the key question now, Damien, is, do Australia have enough time to win this Test match? I've been looking at the weather forecast, and it's patchy. Let me see if there's any more updates. But yeah, it's kind of patchy. So I don't know. It's going to be tough from here.
It is, isn't it? It'll be a shame because they're in the box seat, aren't they? And yeah, just having a look, there's some storms around as well. And don't forget, if there's lightning storms in the area, it doesn't necessarily have to rain. If there's lightning in the area, they do have to go off as well. And it has to be a certain distance away before they can actually start playing again. So we're not really seeing, at least.
Yeah, sorry. The forecast for Saturday is pretty bad. Then it seems to fine up. And it's just whether Australia have time, because they need 15 more wickets.
That's right, and they'll probably enter a self-preservation mode as well, Sri Lanka. You would get the sense at a certain point. I was intrigued to see if we had the fine conditions today, whether, if they'd knocked them over for, let's say, hypothetically 180, 190, whether Australia would have enforced the follow-on. Because traditionally, particularly after what happened in 2001 against India, they have always veered away from that, haven't they? So it would have been interesting had they done that. And who knows, we might still see it. I'm not sure.
I think with the rain breaks, they probably will have to take the follow-on, because the bowlers have had plenty of rest today. So with the spinners dominating the innings, I think that, with Sri Lanka still over 500 runs behind, their only chance of winning is to enforce the follow-on and just go for it. And if it's a bit stop-start on Saturday, day 4, but they get all of Sunday, then maybe the pitch deteriorates and Australia can take a bundle of wickets on the last day. But, a lot's going to rest on the spinners getting the job done, I think, on that last day.
Yeah, exactly right. But, yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether they do have time. I think it'll just depend on tomorrow's weather, really. And, I just see Sri Lanka going into self-preservation mode if they have to, and they'll try and grind it out on that last day. So we'll see. It'll be a good test. It's sometimes a good problem to have, Menners, in that situation when you can't necessarily lose, but you try and find a way to win, and the draw is the only worst case scenario. But it'd be a shame, though, in a way, because they deserve to win this Test match, Australia, with the way they've been playing so far, and then to win it quite convincingly, and just conditions getting in the way.
You're right. They've been dominant, and hopefully they can force a result. I'd love to see them do it. So before we move on to the women's test, just some breaking news today that Mitch Marsh has been ruled out of Australia's Champions Trophy squad with a back injury. Pat Cummins is still in doubt with an ankle injury. The selectors are yet to name a replacement for Mitch Marsh. But again, it just underlines the fact that we were told all summer Mitch Marsh was fit when he wasn't. We were fed a bit of BS from the selectors and the coaches, and it's clear now he wasn't that fit through the summer. He tried his best, but that's quite a big loss for Australia. And I have a feeling, had Pat Cummins not been available, Mitchell Marsh might have captained that side. So then they'll probably have to look to either Steve Smith or Travis Head to captain the side in the Champions Trophy if Cummins is not there.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, Matt Short and Aaron Hardy come into that preliminary squad, two players who will be interesting to see what contribution they make if they get a lot of a chance. But yeah, having said that, Matt, I see your point, but would they have just given him one last chance this summer, basically? Is that why they persisted with going with him and trying to keep things on the quiet so that they didn't give anything away to the opposition? And did they just persist with him in the sense that this was considered to be the highest priority for Australian cricket, that Border Gavaskar series?
Oh, look, they gave it a go. I don't really want to relitigate it, but they stuck with him for a long time. They love him in the team. The selectors love him. The selectors have shown that they want to be loyal to players. And to be fair, Marsh was coming off an Allan Border medal win But my reading of the assessment is that, unfortunately, Marsh just not a good enough test batter. And if he's not bowling, then his use to the side goes down a long way. So, yeah, shame he's injured because he is a very good white ball player. He's a powerful hitter. He dominates white ball cricket. He doesn't dominate test cricket in the same way. So you're right. Matt Short, you would think, will have an opportunity to open now in the Champions Trophy. I'd actually like to see them think about moving Smith up to the opening spot. He's done it so well in T20 cricket for the Sixers. I think this might be the perfect opportunity to get him in the top of the order. He's in such good form, 300s in his last 4 tests. Make him captain. Australia hasn't skipped a beat in this test match without Cummins. So, maybe Smith can do that role in the Champions Trophy.
Well, there are a lot of people thinking, his days were numbered, but as we've seen with him and Khawaja as well, maybe there's still a bit of life left. I think in Khawaja's case, though, it's a situation where I think he does revel in those type of conditions, and we've seen it in the past, and maybe not so much in Australia. But, yeah, the adaptability of Steve Smith to a variety of conditions, it just goes to show. And we're hearing the discussion actually in the media in the last 24 hours whether he can continue to play beyond the age of 40. And I know he's probably not as consistent. If you look holistically over the last 12 months, he hasn't been as consistent as he was maybe in his peak period 4 or 5 years ago. But he still adds a lot of value, and he has a good temperament out there as well.
Well, I guess can he catch Ponting's 41 Test hundreds as well and be the most prolific centurion for Australia in Test cricket? So Mitch Marsh out of the Champions Trophy. Let's turn our attention now to the MCG. The Women's Ashes Test is going on, and as we're recording this, actually stumps have just been called, so I'll be able to give you an exact score. But the England team are having an absolute shocker. I want to focus on some good news first, and we talked about what the crowd might be. So on day one, they got just under 12,000, and on day two, they got just under 12,000, meaning they've got 23,500 across the first 2 days, which is a world record for any women's test. So I think you have to say it's a great result. England haven't done the Australian public any favours, basically, by putting on a good show. So, you were going there and seeing a very poor English side against a very good Aussie side. But to break the world record, that's a fantastic achievement, and it's only day two.
Yeah, absolutely. I was impressed actually by the day one crowd in particular, because a lot of kids were going back to school that day, Manners. That's always a hectic time for both parents of kids and also kids themselves. It was a good effort, I thought, to get over 11,000 on day one on a work day. I know it's a day-night test, but people still had to go to work the next day. I thought that was a pretty reasonable effort in particular. I think the big test will be how they go tomorrow. What sort of crowd do they get? Because there's no real excuse. The Australians are playing well. I know it's not the most competitive test match of all time so far, but, you're seeing some of the greatest players of all time in the women's game in action for Australia in their pomp. Hopefully they get a pretty reasonable crowd, because the weather, it's warm, but it's not ridiculously warm. It'll be nice at night. It'll be nice and balmy, and we should get a full day's play. So I think it'll be interesting. This will be probably the dictator, and I think it has been a success in general so far, but it'll be a dictator as to how we judge the way the public have received this test match, because locally there's not a heck of a lot else happening, really. I know the Aussie men's team are in action at the moment, but given how one-sided that's been as well, Manners, maybe that works into the favour of a bit more attention being placed on this test match, as one-sided as it has been as well in the women's.
Yeah, the rain certainly helped. I think a lot of people would have flicked over to the women's test when they went off in Gaul. So just on the women's test, England, let me just see, did they win the toss? Australia won the toss and they sent in England, and England were bowled out for 170. Alana King took 4 for 45. And then in reply, it stumps on day two. Australia are 5 for 422. They are in a dominant position, leading by over 250 runs, 252 runs. Annabelle Sutherland brought up her third test century. She made 163. She's the first woman to score a test 100 at the MCG, and the fact that she's Victorian as well just adds a cherry on top. Damien, as a Victorian, will be very happy with that. But spare a thought for Beth Mooney, who has never scored a Test century. She's 98 not out. She couldn't get the strike in the last couple of overs of the day, so she will have to wait until tomorrow to maybe bring up a first Test century. Good contributions from Litchfield with 45, Healy with 34, and Gardner with 44. But Sutherland, her third Test century in 9 innings. Damien, she is a phenomenal player, and she's not even 25 yet.
One of the great all-rounders, men's or women's in the world at the moment, Menners. You've got to remember she made that double century against South Africa just under a year ago. She's in sterling form. One of those people that's really good at anything, Menners. She could have been an Australian rules footballer if she wanted to. She was a fantastic junior in that sport. And I think she got an ATAR score of like 99 point something, Menners. She's just one of those people. And I know, she's had a pretty good upbringing in that sense and been given a lot of opportunities. But, gee, she's taken them, and she's just one of those naturals. And I'm sure she works hard as well, don't get me wrong. But one of those people that's very good at everything, Menners. And, she punishes the bad balls, loved her stroke play, her technique. There's a good variety in her stroke play as well, hitting them to all parts of the ground. She just looked very calm and composed out there. And a player, I don't know, there's probably not much of a ceiling for her. The sky's the limit. So she's in fantastic form. And, yeah, just with some of the fielding from England, I've got to say, man, a couple of drop chances as well. Ash Gardner was dropped pretty early on in her innings. It was really a sitter, wasn't it? In the end, some of the fielding has been pretty poor, I've got to say.
Well, in today's play, England dropped 8 catches, and that is woeful. It is embarrassing when you consider that they were audacious enough to ignore Alex Hartley's request for interviews because she criticised their fitness and fielding, and then they put on a display like that. That is embarrassing. This is one of the worst performances by any English team to come to Australia. It is just spiralling out of control. And the thing is about fielding, and the way I think about it is, it's all about hard work. Like, there is no excuse for fielding. If you practice hard, you can be good at fielding. You can improve. The fact is, you can build your confidence. Like, if you're training hard and taking a lot of good catches at training, when you get into the middle, it's just muscle memory. But they're clearly not putting in the work because they just look horrible. Clearly their fitness is not good enough. But to be dropping that many catches, that just shows they're not working hard enough.
Yeah, and just trying to find excuses as well, Menners. If I'm to find a positive, I know Sophie Eccleston did take a couple of wickets, but she was pretty expensive. I haven't minded Lauren Bell. I know, look, she's conceded 94 runs, but has taken 2 wickets. Player who was sort of on the periphery only a few years ago. She was playing in the England A side when they last came out here a few years ago. She's really developed into a very good bowler, very marketable person. We've seen in the 100 she's made a decent contribution. So if there's one positive, I've enjoyed watching her bowl. She's persisted pretty well.
Oh yeah, absolutely. But she's been at the centre of this controversy with Hartley, so I've got real no sympathy for her. I mean, if you're not going to talk to a former teammate because of a few comments, well, bad luck.
Well, that was Eccleston, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. Who are you talking about?
I was talking about Lauren Bell.
Oh, yeah, sorry. You did say Eccleston took a couple of wickets.
Yeah, at the start, and then, Lauren Bell afterwards, yeah.
Yeah, Lauren Bell is a good cricketer. She played for the Stars last year, didn't she? So,
yeah, good player who's starred in the 100 as well in recent times. Very good player who's persisted very well.
Good. All right. Well, in the 2 Test matches, Australia dominant. They lead by almost 800 runs in the 2 Test matches combined. Sri Lanka trail Australia in goal by 518 runs, and Australia lead England by 252 runs at the MCG. Damien, thanks for jumping on. And where can the listeners catch up with you?
At Damo_Watts on Twitter.
And thanks for tuning into the Cricket Unfiltered podcast. We'll be back after day 4. Maybe there'll be some more action at Galle and maybe some more drop